This is a pre-recorded live, so not so live. This is early November. I am teaching in Houston at International Quilt Festival. I'm teaching Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, all day long, 3 big classes. And I know they're going to be great. I'm just really looking forward to that. I love to teach, and teaching there is going to be really fun. So, but I wanted to be able to talk with you about month 11 as we wrap up Homeward Bound. And so I've pre-recorded this. My blog has also been released early so that you'll have it as well. And it has a lot of information to help you with this month 11. So in month 11, we're going to finish, if you haven't already, the previous borders, which were piece borders and had just an applique heart that was still remaining to be done. That heart shape is provided in month 11 and by the designer, by Sarah. So some people just drew their own heart so they could finish it up. But add the heart to the 4 rectangles of fabric that go into that pieced border. And then you can finish the pieced borders, and then you put them on left and right, top and bottom, around your center of your quilt. So that gets that part done. And now we're ready to move on to the final border, which includes cabins and what I'm calling a piano key type of really decorative striped outer border there. So in order to we're going to start in month 11, we're just making the cabins. In month 12, we'll finish up with all those colorful stripes. The roof of the cabin is a flying goose shape. And so the easiest way to make flying geese is 4 at once when you need this many. There's 12 cabins, so they each have a roof. Therefore, you would need 12 roofs. And by making 4 at once, you only have to do them 3 times. Sarah's video shows her method of how to do this. I have a tutorial on my blog with how to do it as well. And there are many sources for 4 flying geese at once. What's different about mine is that I make them oversized and then I custom cut them to be exactly the right size. So if you use the exact measurements, and those are in the pattern, Sarah's are the exact measurements. If you use her exact measurements, just do everything perfectly so that the roof comes out the right size. The roof needs to be 2 inches by 4 inches finished, and when it has a 1/4 inch seam allowance all around, they would be 2.5 by 4.5. But as I said, I make mine oversized and I don't have to be quite as precise. But if you use the exact measurements in the pattern, you must draw the lines exactly perfectly, and you must sew the 1/4 inch seam allowances exactly correct on either side of the line. So I'll leave it up to you to decide which method you prefer. Okay, so I'm going to just go to the document camera for a minute so I can show you this, just a quick little trick. In my blog, I write all of this information in there, and you can see this. I'm going to show you this really cool little trick. Okay, so in order to, let me see if I can make sure I just get this as close to accurate as I can. All right, that looks like it's probably about as, oops, stop. Okay, so this square, which is the smaller square, mine is 5.5. That's larger than it calls for in the pattern. Remember, mine are oversized, okay? And they're not just slightly oversized. There's a mathematical calculation to determine what size to make it. And then on the large square, which will end up being 4 roofs, this dark purple, it's not the fabric in the kit. Mine are already made. I just chose another fabric. I have a substantial amount of purple fabric in my stash here, so it was no problem. I just pulled another purple. 5.5 square of purple, which is ultimately going to become 4 roofs. And then you need 4 squares that are 3 1/8. That is, again, oversized. It's not the size that Sarah writes in the pattern. Hers is smaller. But mine I did 3 1/8 because I want them to be larger. And again, it's mathematically figured out. Well, in each of those 4 squares, you need a diagonal line drawn. And I saw this on the internet years ago and thought this was the most brilliant idea ever. It takes a while if you've got 4 of these and you do it 3 times. That means you have 12 of these little white squares. You have to draw lines each 12 times. If you simply think in terms of 3 1/8 plus 3 1/8, that is 6 1/4. I cut a square of background 6 1/4. which is the equivalent of 4 3 1/8 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then using a mechanical pencil, which is my go-to marker of choice, on the wrong side of the background fabric, I just used a ruler and I drew a pencil line as accurately as I could from diagonal to diagonal, and then again on this side, diagonal to diagonal. Once those are done, as carefully as you can make them, now we're going to cut this large square into the 4 smaller squares. And what is half of 6 1/4? 3 1/8. So I bring my little 3 1/8 line, and the 1/8 is this first little tick mark just past the 3 before you get to 3 1/4. And you should be able to double check yourself if you've got these diagonal lines drawn right. That's going to come right through the middle right there. So I'm going to draw, just use a pencil instead of cutting it, so you can see where that would go. And then I draw the other line. I have to cut it in half this way as well at 3 1/8, 3 1/8, and I'm right up there at the diagonal. Come across here. And of course I wouldn't draw the line. I would use my rotary cutter and cut it apart. But I just want you to see it. Okay. So that's how I can get these 4 squares that are each the correct size and already have the diagonal line drawn. It takes me longer to explain it to you than it will take you to do it. Once those 4 are cut apart, you're ready to lay them on the big purple square, making 4 flying geese at once. And you simply do this 3 times to make all 12 of the roofs this time. So it's just a really nifty trick. And as I said, I have a tutorial on my blog and I've got a link to it. There are many options of YouTubes and videos on how to make 4 flying geese at once. It's something that's commonly done. So anyway, the other thing I wanted to show you is, and there it is, let me get it. All right. Another thing I show you on the blog, some people prefer to paper piece. The cabin has some little shapes down here, and some of them are pretty small. But if you are adept at using electric quilt, or you have done a lot of paper piecing and you're not afraid to draw your own patterns, that's perfectly fine. The roof is a 2 inch by 4 inch finished roof, so you need the seam allowance all around. And then the cabin part itself is made up of 3 sections, 2 window sections and a door section in the center. And these have to equal 4 inches altogether. This is 1 inch in the middle, therefore that means that these have to be 1 1/2 from here to here and 1 1/2 from here to here. So the door section is 1 by 2 finished, don't forget your seam allowance, and 1 1/2 by 2 with a seam allowance all included. If you are adept at doing paper piecing, I'm not going to show you how to do it. I'm not providing this pattern. I just put it through in electric quilt and had no trouble getting it if you prefer to paper piece. So that just takes us back here to the back to wrapping this up. Next month, we're going to make the remaining parts of the borders. That's those striped parts across the top, the piano key style, I call them. It's not as simple as it looks. I know a couple people have gone ahead and they said they figured out how to do it and without the pattern, and that's really great. Last year when I was reading the pattern and studying it and trying to double check everything, I know I spent more than 3 hours on month 12 trying to figure out how it was done. Some of the diagrams had to be changed. The diagrams didn't match the direction. So that took me quite a while. So I have made certain that the diagrams for month 12 really do match the instructions. And so you should be able to follow them in month 12. So the next live is scheduled for Friday, December 1st, when we will wrap this Homeward Bound up. You'll be making the remaining pieced borders there with those piano keys. Hopefully you've already got your stars done. If not, now's the time you can go ahead and finish those. We got that in those instructions in earlier months. And then just my friendly reminder again to make certain that you have saved the patterns in whatever method you want to save them, because after December 31st of 2023, the Quilt Show will no longer have any rights to the pattern. The rights at that point revert back to Sarah Fielke, the designer. She will be selling the pattern. Every year people lose the patterns, their hard drive crashed, the thumb drive doesn't work anymore, and they write us, and sometimes it's years later, they write and say, oh, please, I was a member then, please, I need to get these patterns. We do not have the right to give those to anyone, and no one that is a member has the right to give a copyrighted pattern to someone else after the deadline has passed. They are only free to us as STAR members for the current calendar year, which will end December 31st, 2023. So please print them if that's your preferred method. Whatever method you have to do, any of the block patterns that you haven't saved already, even if you haven't even started and now you say, I think I want to start. Up till December 31st, you have the right to print every single one of the patterns. And I encourage you to do that if this is a quilt you think you want to make someday. It's worth a good bit, or you can just simply buy the patterns from the designer later when you decide, at quite a cost. So I hope that you'll keep that in mind. Anyway, so I am, as I said, it's November and I'm in Houston having a fabulous time. I hope to see some of you there. And if you see me, please stop me and say hi, that you're a STAR member. I'm very happy to meet all of you for real every chance I get. So until next time, that's a wrap.